Hi, ArcfieldWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Thursday morning, November the 16th. The big weather story continues to be what is going to take place next week. It looks like there will be a major league cold shot, a big time cold shot, impressively colder than normal air mass traveling from northwest to southeast across the nation next week, probably reaching the mid-Atlantic region by the time we get to Thanksgiving Day. And ahead of it will be a very strong storm system that will have an impact over a wide part of the nation, from the Great Lakes and the Midwest all the way to the Mid-Atlantic and northeastern coastlines in the Tuesday, Wednesday timeframe. Of course, those are big travel days just ahead of the holiday on Thursday. Looks like a lot of rain and wind on the front side, and certainly some accumulating snow to the north and west of that surface low pressure system. Let's talk about a few teleconnection indices before we get into the weather maps from the operational run of the GFS last night. Here's a look at the outlook for the Arctic Oscillation Index, and then we'll take a look at the closely related cousin known as the North Atlantic Oscillation, the NAO. When these two indices drop into negative territory this time of the year, it tends to suggest there will be high latitude blocking, higher than normal heights or higher pressure than normal over places like Greenland and Iceland, and that in turn generally is more favorable for cold air discharges from Canada into the central and eastern U.S. We'll see here in the dashed line here is the forecast for the Arctic Oscillation right here, the middle of November. This is actually yesterday's date there of November 15th. It goes all the way out to December 1st. And just notice the trend at the end there, dropping down and into negative territory as we go through the last week of the month of November. Now here's a look at the NAO, the North Atlantic Oscillation. Same kind of pattern where it starts to drop down in value and reaches negative territory. This is the neutral line right here, and it tends to drop into negative territory right at the end of the month. We're talking about the last few days of November. Both the NAO and AO drop and move into negative territory at the end of the month. Both are kind of suggesting that some of these cold air outbreaks coming over the next week to 10 days or so may be rather sustained as we turn into the month of December. It's something we'll certainly watch as we go through the next couple of weeks. Now here's another teleconnection index, and by teleconnection index I mean basically what we're saying is what happens in one part of the world can impact another part of the world. We have all kinds of teleconnection indices we can look at. The AO and NAO really have to give us a clue as to what's going on over the Arctic region and the North Atlantic in terms of temperature and pressure patterns. This is another index known as the EPO, or Eastern Pacific Oscillation, and it really gives us a clue as to what may be happening in the upper part of the atmosphere over the west coast of the U.S. and Canada and all the way up into Alaska. And when this particular index drops into negative territory, that suggests there may be a ridge, an upper level ridge of high pressure popping up along the west coast of Canada and Alaska. And I've been mentioning in recent videos that snow has been piling up over Alaska and much of Canada. November happens to be the snowiest month in much of that part of North America, Alaska and Canada as well. And it's been not only quite cold, colder than normal in Alaska, but snowier than normal. Some of the deepest snowpack recorded so early in the season, places like Anchorage had nearly 2 feet of snow on the ground just a few days ago. So if you get a ridge popping up over Alaska, that in turn will help to push cold air masses from way up in Canada, northern Canada and Alaska, south and east across Canada and into the central U.S. And take a look at what's predicted here by the European model. This EPO slides up into positive territory over the next few days, but then next week drops sharply all the way down into negative territory and stays there pretty much into the end of the month of November. So this again is a bullish sign for cold air masses to make their way from northern Canada into the central and eastern U.S. And indeed, it's given us support to the idea that a big-time cold shot will cross the country next week, across the central U.S. and the eastern U.S. As we head into the Thanksgiving Day holiday. Well, let's take a look now at the 0Z run, the conventional version of the GFS. It's actually, I believe, has had a pretty good handle on this cold air outbreak. The European model is finally coming on board with the idea of a big-time cold shot for the central and eastern states next week. It was kind of flip-flopping there. The GFS has been pretty consistent with a big cold shot dropping from northwest to southeast next week. Continues to look like that. And now the European, again, is kind of joining the party for indicating that this cold shot will make it all the way into the eastern U.S. next week. Let's look here at the North America viewpoint of the 500 millibar height anomaly pattern. Here's Alaska. I want to point that out here as we begin the day here on Thursday, November 16th. Lower heights than normal. This is the blues indicate lower heights than normal. Remember, we just looked at that EPO, that negative EPO, or what will become a negative EPO. Right now it's positive. You have troughiness, low pressure over Alaska right now. But watch what happens as we go through the next several days. Again, keeping in mind that EPO flips from positive to negative territory, and that is usually suggestive of a big-time ridge forming over the west coast of Canada and into Alaska. And look at what we have here by the time we get to the Tuesday of next week. A very, very strong ridge popping up over Alaska, the west coast of Canada, all the way down to the west coast of the U.S. And when you see something like this, that, again, as depicted by that negative EPO, that flip to a negative EPO, you see the wind flow right here, and that certainly opens the door for very, very cold air from way up in Alaska, northern Canada, even sometimes the other side of the North Pole, to drop south and east through Canada into the central and eastern U.S. And indeed, that is what will take place next week. Again, aided in large part by this strong ridge of high pressure popping up over Alaska and the western part of Canada. By the way, Alaska in this kind of a pattern will warm up. They'll actually, they've been very cold, very snowy in the last couple of weeks. This kind of ridge popping up there means they'll warm up relative to normal, and at the same time, very, very cold air that is situated over that deep snowpack. Now, that deepening snowpack up in this part of North America will be able to come south and east all the way into the central and eastern U.S. Well, let's now kind of shift gears and look at the continental U.S., again using the 0Z, the operational run of the GFS. And a large part of the nation starts off the day here 1 week ahead of Thanksgiving, Thursday, November 16th today, warmer than normal conditions, really from the interior west across the northern plains and into the northeast and mid-Atlantic. Today, temperatures in D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, for example, could climb all the way up to the middle 60s. That's above normal for this time of the year. Noticeably milder day in the mid-Atlantic and northeast U.S. Now, we'll move forward in time here going into the early and middle part of next week and then Thanksgiving. Here we are this weekend. There'll be a cold frontal system coming through the mid-Atlantic, northeast U.S. on Friday night with some showers once again, as has been the case in recent weeks in the mid-Atlantic, northeast U.S. That does not, Friday night system does not look like it'll produce significant rainfall by any means. Showers are a threat indeed, but not a heavy rain event. Once again, it's been very dry in this part of the nation. Now, next Tuesday or Wednesday, looks like there could be some significant rain throughout the mid-Atlantic northeast ahead of that cold blast that arrives by Thanksgiving Day. Let's keep moving forward here. Through the weekend, there will be a cold shot dropping into the northeast U.S. behind that Friday night frontal passage. colder Saturday and Sunday, and even into the day on Monday, kind of confined to the northeastern quadrant of the nation. Then we go into the early part of next week, and here we are on Tuesday, and here it comes. This is the beginning of that drop to the south and east of a very impressive cold air mass, again, with its origins up over northwestern Canada, Alaska, not far at all from the North Pole. Now, let's clear the deck here and keep moving forward here. This is Tuesday. Now we're going into Wednesday morning. There'll be a strong front delineating the very cold air relative to normal to the west and still mild air to the east on Wednesday. Then we get into the day on Thursday, and here we go on Thanksgiving Day, and this is just a cold air blast dropping from northwest to southeast. It reaches the mid-Atlantic region by the time we get to Thanksgiving Day, which of course is next Thursday. We'll go out a little bit farther in time, and here we go, kind of sticks around. Here we go all the way to the end of next week, kind of reinforcing shot into the northwestern part of the U.S. As we get to Friday of next week. Now, ahead of this cold air blast next week, there'll be a strong storm system that pulls out of the southern states, heads towards the Great Lakes, and it'll really intensify once that storm system reaches the Great Lakes and Midwest. We're talking Tuesday time frame of next week, and that storm will have a big impact over a large part of the nation on Tuesday and Wednesday, which of course are big time travel days ahead of the Thursday holiday. And this storm will impact the Great Lakes, the Midwest, the Mid-Atlantic, the Northeast U.S. And by the way, this storm system really is the one that is impacting California right now. It kind of moves across the western U.S. into the nation's midsection over the next few days, reaching the southern states by early next week, and then really takes off in intensity by Tuesday or so of next week. And we'll take a look here at the surface forecast maps from last night's GFS. A lot of rainfall still over the southern part of Florida, associated with really not one but two different tropical-like systems, one hanging back over the Gulf and one kind of reforming over the Keys and enhancing the rainfall in places like Fort Lauderdale, Miami, inundated with rain from that system that ends up moving, we'll see here, over the western Atlantic, and it generally stays off the eastern seaboard here over the upcoming weekend. Here we go. Here's that funnel system I alluded to a little while ago. Friday night into Saturday morning. It'll bring some showers to the Mid-Atlantic region, but as has been the case in recent weeks, a weakening type of system, not at all a significant rain event. And here's that tropical system kind of consolidating into one over the western part of the Atlantic by the early part of the weekend. But notice it's pretty far off the coast, producing minimal impacts along the Mid-Atlantic coastline, if any. And there'll be some rain and snow up across Maine during the upcoming weekend as that funnel system pushes on through. And again, there was a kind of a cold shot on the heels of that frontal system for Saturday, Sunday, into Monday, Mid-Atlantic, Northeast U.S. And then here we go into next week, Thanksgiving weekend. Here we have this system here by the time we get to Monday morning. Again, it's kind of impacting California, Baja, all the way up into the West Coast right now, and it moves in this fashion over the next few days, reaches the nation's midsection by early next week. And here's when it starts to really intensify, as we have this very strong high that will play a key role in this, as it'll certainly help to tighten the pressure gradient with this strong storm system Tuesday, Wednesday time frame. Look at that high moving over southeastern part of Canada. Again, it sets up a differential in pressure, 998 millibar low here over the Tennessee, Mississippi Valley, 1034 high over southeastern Canada Tuesday. Tightening pressure gradient, that means a lot of wind, and it also produces a nice surface for warmer and more humid air to ride up and over as we progress through Tuesday into Wednesday. And here we go, an intensifying storm by Tuesday night, and strong winds, mild air ahead of it although there'll be enough cold air hanging on some of the mountains, upstate PA, maybe southern New York, for at least initially the chance of some ice or snow. And here we go into Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. Snow certainly accumulating up across the northern Great Lakes, and interior part of New England could get accumulating snow on the significant side out of this system. We're talking late Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, again, primarily the interior sections of New England. Here is the surface low at this particular time over the eastern Great Lakes as of Wednesday morning, the day before Thanksgiving. Maybe a secondary development along the the northern Mid-Atlantic coastline, maybe the southern New England coastline by the middle part of next week. And this is that cold blast here. We can see these dashed blue lines, which represent the thickness level of the lowest half of the atmosphere from the surface up to 500 millibars. The lower the thickness, the lower the temperature on average, and this is an impressively cold air mass. By that I mean, relative to normal, it's way below normal. There will be some places throughout the northern plains, into the Midwest, maybe even into the east, that are 15 to 25 degrees below normal with this particular influx of cold air. Let's move ahead a little bit. The cold air finally reaches the Mid-Atlantic region, let's say late Wednesday night, just in time for Thanksgiving Day. This is Thanksgiving morning, and this whole part of the nation will be very, very cold indeed relative to normal, with a very impressive cold shot that, again, reaches the Mid-Atlantic region in full fury by the time we get to Thursday morning, Thanksgiving Day. Now, let's go out a little bit farther in time, and again, the cold air tends to stick around. When you get a cold air outbreak of that kind of significance, it's not going to go away anytime too soon, so expect cold conditions to continue in the Mid-Atlantic, Northeast U.S. Into the end of the week next week. Let's say Friday, a big shopping day, and a secondary cold shot starting to show up here over the northwestern part of the nation. Look at this thickness here, a 504 thickness. That is some very cold air that kind of follows or reinforces this initial shot of cold air, which again crosses the nation next week. Two big stories next week. A big time storm will impact a large part of the nation in the Wednesday time frame, from the Great Lakes to the Midwest to the Mid-Atlantic, Northeast U.S., and a major league cold shot travels from northwest to southeast, crosses the nation, reaching the Mid-Atlantic coastline by the time we get to Thursday, Thanksgiving Day. That's it for now. For ArcfieldWeather.com, this has been meteorologist Paul Dorian.